Welcome to Wine for Normal People, the podcast for people who like wine, but not the snobbery that goes with it. I'm your host, Elizabeth Schneider, author of the Wine for Normal People book and certified wine dork. This podcast is brought to you by Wine Access. Go to wineaccess.com/WFMP to get into the site and browse their amazing collection of curated wines. They taste tens of thousands of wines a year and only pick the top ones for the site. It's a great supplement to your local wine shopping. Check it out today or join my wine club, wineaccess.com/normal. Listen in the middle of the show for more details. This is a really special show. It is the merging of entertainment and wine. If you haven't seen the Apple TV series Drops of God, you must change that quickly. In my opinion, this is the best wine production show movie ever done. It's the best thing I've ever seen. It's not hokey. It shows wine in a realistic and good light. It's a cool story. The first season dropped in 2023. It won the International Emmy Award for Best Drama Series. It's actually based on a Japanese manga series, which is a graphic novel series that was first published in 2004. There were many series after the first one. There was a live action version produced for Japanese TV in 2009, and then a French production team took on the show and changed it a little bit. Just to give you a quick catch up, in season one, this multilingual show, it's in French, Japanese, and English. It's subtitled where it needs to be. It opens with the death of Alexandre Leger, who is a French wine critic based in Tokyo. He's larger than life. He leaves an 87,000 bottle cellar worth $150 million. It's actually based on a real collection in France. Alexandre's will dictates that his estate will either go to his estranged daughter, Camille, played by Fleur Geffier, who Alexandre trained so hard as a girl that she turned against wine despite having an amazing palate, or his best student and protege, Issei Tomini, who is played by Tomohisa Yamashita, and he is a very polished Japanese sommelier who's the most buttoned-up wine pro you could encounter. The winner of the entire estate, so says the will be the person who solves the majority of 3 extremely difficult wine tests laid out by Alexander. The contest in season 1 takes Camille and Issei from Japan to France to Italy. Camille rediscovers wine, and she learns the fundamentals of tasting, of etiquette, of rituals. It's a really clever, non-pretentious way to bring people into the story who don't know about wine stuff, and it works really well into the plot. It's just done seamlessly, and it's awesome. The show's beautiful. It's a little suspenseful. And it presents wine as a multifaceted thing, not just expensive bottles in a cellar, but the land, the people who grew it, all the things that we know that make wine so great. Wine is the main character along with Camille and Issei. Season 1 of Drops of God was so great. It was renewed for a second season. That is currently unfolding week after week on Apple TV. Season 1 is still available for you to watch. In season 2, Camille and Issei take on another challenge. They are looking for the origin of the world's best wine, a feat which Alexandre Leger failed to complete. They go to Châteauneuf in Rhône. They go to various places in France, in Japan again, and then to the regions of Georgia with their traditional kferivi, the buried amphora in which they age wines with the skins, maceration wines for long periods. So the second season, again, they're just doing such great, important, non-preachy historical facts about the wine world. And it also delves into the relationship between the characters, and it's very cool. So why am I telling you all this and what's going to happen in this podcast? So I said at the beginning, this is such a great wine production, and you can tell by episode 522 with patron and friend Bevis Sidney that I'm a little critical of wine movies, not a whole bunch that I respect or like. Bevis and I actually did talk about Drops of God in that podcast. You have to trust me when I say I truly believe this is such a great show, and what made this so special is that to get all the facts and details and wines right, there had to be a person making all the right choices of bottles, doling out good information about wine. And there was. So when Apple TV asked me if I wanted to have Sebastien Seb Pradal on the podcast, I said absolutely. Let me just tell you a couple of things before I get to the podcast with Seb, who was the sommelier consultant on Drops of God. The first thing you should know He won the very prestigious Best Young Sommelier of France in 1997, but he decided not to pursue a career in the upper echelons of wine. Instead, he went the entrepreneurial route. He leads a wine distribution and consulting agency. He owns the fine dining restaurant La Petite Régalade in Paris, which I have a link to in the show notes. He showcases French gastronomy, highlights independent producers and cool wines, and he also imports French wines into Mexico and Colombia. He's got this amazing resume, but he was selected by the writers working on Drops of God to help them make the series true to the wine world because he's not a snob. The way he talks about wine is very down to earth. And he was able to select all the wines mentioned in the show. There's a mystery grape in season 1. He figured out what that was going to be. He has picked up many of the locations in both seasons. He also was charged with making all wine-related activities seem authentic, and he worked closely with the actors to train them about wine, on wine tasting, on the wine world. He said now the actors liked it so much that they order and drink wine regularly, and they know their way around a list. They're great ambassadors for wine. This show is going to give you a rare glimpse into why Drops of God is so successful in portraying the wine world when so many others have fallen short. The glimpse I'm showing you is really about Seb Pradal and his contributions to the show. He's a delightful person. He shares fun insider information with us. And then, because I can't resist, we have some great conversation about the world of wine at large, how Drops of God and other productions like it can give wine the boost that it needs, frankly. Yes, we do mention Taylor Swift in this show. Absolutely. All right. I am sorry for the long intro. I hope you enjoy the show. Let me know if you have any questions. Important links are in the show notes. So let's get to it. Seb, welcome to the show. And I'd love for you to tell us about your background, where you're from, and how you got into wine and what you currently do in wine so we can understand how you got selected for this really interesting role.
Elizabeth, hi, thank you. I'm happy to see you today. Firstly, I'm a sommelier. I'm 53 years old. I'm come from the south of France, living in Paris for 30 years now. And I'm a sommelier for 35 years approximately, I guess. When I was young, I used to win a national championship. I was working in restaurants for 2 years maybe, and quickly after this championship, I wanted to be a wine agent. That means that I sell wine into restaurants or to wine shops as well. For example, Comte Lafon, Grange des Pères, Beaucastel, etc. And I own a restaurant in Paris, which is called La Petite Régalade, in the real centrum, making bistronomie. So that means the standard of the French cuisine. And I own a company as well in Mexico. I'm importing wines there, French wines there.
Can people come to your restaurant?
Yeah.
Is it hard to get a reservation? That it is
No,
now.
of course. Yeah, if people can come to my restaurant, you are all welcome to. Well, there is only 50 seats, but everybody is welcome to my restaurant. No problem.
I think people would love to come see you. That'll be awesome. So we'll get a link and put it in the show
Please.
notes so everybody can come visit. So Drops of God started out as a manga series, which
Right.
you were familiar with, not familiar with?
Well, of course, I was familiar with when we started to speak about the show 7 years ago.
You started 7 years ago talking about this?
Well, I've got such a short memory, but I think 7 or 8 years ago, it was before COVID, definitely. And I think 2 years before, so maybe in 2018, something like that, or 19 approximately.
So this was a long time in the works.
Yeah, but this is not, this is a bit like our time. The time for grape variety and wine is very long, and I understood that it's the same thing into the film industry, very long. Everything is very long and not very sure. That's why I understand and I love so much that world. It looks like ours. Yeah, 7 or 8 years ago, when we started to talk about the Drops of God, I didn't read the mangas, but I knew, of course, about them and the 40 mangas, which have been published like 14 or 15 million all over the world. And when I started to write the scripts and etc. with Kook Ban Tran, the writer, I didn't read yet the mangas. I've done it since that time, but there is only one reference that we make into the first season. The first image of the first season is a tribute to the writers and to the grail of the Drops of God, the mangas. That's it. Okay,
like
so
what we call the Easter egg, right? They dropped something in there to reference it. I didn't notice it. I'll have to go back and look.
Chateau de Puy, which is the grail of the manga. Yeah, that's it.
Your role was you met them, you trained the writers first, then you train the actors? How did that work? And did you train the whole cast? How did the whole thing go?
Well, firstly, the producer, Klaus Zimmermann, okay, he's the one I had to convince, or not to convince, because the way that we met was fortunate. It was through relationships we had in common. He was looking for someone knowing about wine, but an expert, but not, let's say, a bit rock and roll, not conventional. So firstly, I was talking and explaining about the wine. So he told me after a few meetings that he wanted to work with me because he understood the way I was speaking about wine. Then we started to work with the writer and his team. So it was mostly chats around the table, drinking and eating, of course. And they were asking me many questions about wine itself, about agriculture, viticulture, sommelier championship. How does it work when you taste the wine? How does it work in your head? I mean, but after that, there was the part of the actor training. Yeah.
You had told me that you went down to vineyards and showed them how it worked.
Right.
2 questions for you. One is, did they understand the importance of going on location to see what was going on? Because we know that it's awesome to look at the bottle, but really the only thing that matters is going to the vineyard. That's everything. And if you don't see that, you've missed all of wine. Did they get that? Did they know that they had to do that? Or did you have to convince them?
No, I didn't have to convince them because it was obvious, Drops of God is talking about family, about transmission, about love, about there is no gun, no army, no politics. So it's very a feel-good series. And it was obvious that going to Mother Nature,
Yep.
you say it in English? Okay.
Of course,
But
yes.
was the root of the series. So, of course, we went there to understand how a vine works, what is it to be a viticulture or a winemaker. And we spent 3 days, I think, at Château de Beaucastel in Châteauneuf-du-Pape because they are working in biodynamics. They have a way of making wines from $3 to $500. Okay, so they have a big spectrum of wine and hospitality and etc. And after being there for 3 days, they understood some of the things that I wanted. It was speaking about the wine, but the people making the wine as well,
Right.
and the way they are making it, and that it's hard, and it's about nature and humanity, and etc. It was obvious.
I didn't ask you, I should have asked you this when you were talking about your background. Why do you think that you talk about wine in this very different way? You were only involved with this snooty culture for a couple of years, but you do run a restaurant. You work with some very high-end chateau, and yet you're still a lovely person who didn't seem to get caught up in all of that. That's why they picked you. They picked you because the language that you use, and also not just the language, I feel like it's the thought process that you have about wine is very different. I think if the whole wine industry were more like you, and I'd like to think me, people would like wine more. And that's one of the beauties of this series is that, and we'll get into more detail, is that you've got these people that are supposedly very high level, yet when you watch the show, because there is a lot of wine stuff, it's relatable. I mean, I think people can understand. Why do you think that you talk about wine in such a relatable way? What is it about you and how you think?
Well, I don't know. So, you're right when you say that I think that there is a lot of sommelier. The young generation now is breaking a little bit this way of being a sommelier. I think they are cooler than my generation. But firstly, there was always sommelier in France, in US, in all the rich countries, let's say. But there was not a lot of sommelier into our job. So we were considered, and when you are considered, I imagine that you can sometimes be a bit pretentious, but I don't know another word in English. So
No,
I don't
that's the
want
right
people.
word. That's the
Yeah, but
exact, that's a perfect word.
but I have so much respect for all my colleagues sommelier that I don't want to be pretentious. Is maybe the only word I can find in English, But we are.
What you're basically saying is they're very difficult for regular people to relate to. And that's the bigger problem. And you don't have that. That's why I'm trying to figure out where you got that, because you started in that world. You won competitions and stuff like that. So,
But I used to say that I'm a waiter, and even now we are waiters,
yes.
We are wine waiters before being sommelier.
Yes.
So, and when I'm interviewed by some people for the Drops of God, which is an exercise I'm not used to, people are always taking very good care of me, and especially when I'm with the actors, I'm considered almost like an actor. And people are coming with me, give me a cup of coffee, and I used to say, "No, I'm the waiter. I'm the one bringing the coffee to people." But this is my job. And well, something that I would really appreciate from people not knowing about wine or people knowing about wine, if we could create some vocations with the jobs of God, people going to be winemakers, going to cut some grapes into the vineyards, people going to be wine waiters, sommelier, and be happy to be a waiter, because some of the people working in my industry, and I'm just talking about the restaurants, they forgot that serving people is a nice job. It's a really nice job. Well,
I
that's
think
it.
they also forget that that's the only reason any of us have a job is because people drink wine. And if no one drinks wine because you're making it not accessible to them, then none of us have jobs. So that's one of my bigger problems with all the pretension in wine. If you don't get people to drink it, you can be as snotty as you want. But if they don't like it and they don't like the experience, we're all hosed. None of us have a job. So it is the most important thing. And I love that you say you have a restaurant because you don't want to lose that connection. As soon as you lose that, you're done. So it's really important, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And one of the things, well, the sommelier, once again, I respect them so much. So after what we are doing today and the chat, I hope they will understand that's the facts. That's the truth.
They're not
But
listening to this show, so don't worry about it.
okay, that's okay.
Regular
So
people are listening to the show. They all relate to what you're saying.
But one of the things that I used to say to young sommelier when I go in restaurants to sell wines I represent, I always tell them, that's great, the knowledge that you've got and the way that you want to give it to people sitting at the restaurant. But firstly, the most important thing of a sommelier job is to sell wine and to profit out of it. That doesn't mean that you have to sell the most expensive bottle to each table, but you have to choose the proper bottle for the proper guest. For example, someone coming with big rings, diamond rings, and speaking loud with the biggest car parked in front of the restaurant. This
Yep.
one you have to sell a Petrus, because if you don't do that, you don't do your job. But in the meantime, if you got the next table for 25 couple eating and drinking and having good time together, you understand that this is a date which is important for them. Maybe they save money for many years before coming to this restaurant, and those one you have to sell a bottle that you like and which is not expensive. Okay, I don't know if I make my point,
You
but well.
do. And regular people being kind to the servers and being kind to sommeliers will oftentimes get the best wines because they're not wines that everybody knows, but they certainly are fantastic. There's so many wines that people don't know. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So the actors were just regular people when you met them and you had to train them. How do you go about doing that? You started with the writers, right? That was the initial thing. You took the producers down to Beaucastel and Châteauneuf and you helped them first, right? That was the initial thing.
Yeah, exactly. So first, after telling them, not teaching, but telling them a lot about my word, they started to write the script, and they involved me straight away. They told me we leave blanks. Yeah, do you say it? We leave blanks into
Yep.
the script concerning the wine, and you will fill them up. So the dialogues, for example, but as well the competition, how they do it, even the dishes that they are eating during the competition. I've chosen them, the wines, of course, and for the second season, they are investigating to find the famous Grail. But they let me choose some of the countries, of course, the wines. And wine is one of the characters, but wines are as well clues into the show. So, it needed the script somehow. Okay. This is the work that I had to do with the writers. And with the actors, it was more about coaching them about their characters that I knew because I wrote the characters with the writers. And so, for example, Fleur, she's a French writer. She's a poetess. She's allergic to alcohol in the first season. I'm not spoiling, just describing the character, okay? So I told her that she had to handle the glass in a very clumsy way. She's not a professional. And Issei, the Japanese character, who is the chosen one by Alexandre Léger. Alexandre Léger is the papa, the daddy of Camille in the show, and he's the best expert in the world. And Issei, he's his best student, and he's Japanese. So this is from his DNA, being straight and doing the things the best they can. So he's handling his glass very strictly, like a robot a little bit, So the actors, they understood right away because that's their job, what they had to do, reading the characters.
In some ways, I don't want to take away from what the writers and producers did. You guided a lot of this. In the first season, there is this grape called Lineage.
Lineage. Oh, yeah, right.
Lineage.
Lineage.
Is
Yeah.
that the grape from the Loire Valley? Is that what they're talking about? I mean, I looked it up. I've never heard of that, but there's also thousands of grapes that we don't use anymore that maybe will make a comeback now with climate change. Is that grape, or they just made one up?
No. But that's the grape, and
Have you had
I've
it?
chosen it. Yeah, I've chosen it because this is far away. It was 6 years ago, so I don't remember everything. But we needed. Camille, she has to regain her superpower of tasting a wine. Okay, but
Because just for background, as a young child, she tasted wine. She was an expert. Her dad kind of browbeat her and made her do all this stuff. And then it freaked her out. And then she stopped drinking, but she has this extra superpower of being able to taste and catalog all the wines. So that's why we're talking about this. And there's this rare grape that they're looking for in this bottle of wine as part of their competition. And it's one of these things where I remember watching it and being like, who came up with that? Now I'm talking to you. It's very exciting.
Thank you. And but we have to, how do you say, to capture the audience, so we must give you wrong path,
Yeah.
And so you go into the path and then you say, oh, of course, it was not this that they gave us, and we have to keep you like an investigation or a thriller.
It's a mystery.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. A mystery. And so Lineage, there was two aspects. Firstly, it was very great to use it because many decades ago, they used Lineage to make white or red wine as well. Okay, so
it's from Loire, right?
Yeah, it's from Loire. So actually, there is a fantastic winemaker, natural winemaker, and the real one of the best and pioneer natural winemaker. It's Claude Dutubeuf, the Puzelat family. They reintroduced Lineage maybe 5 years or 6 years ago, just when we finished writing the script. I saw an article in La Revue des Vins de France, which is our wine spectator in France, speaking about Puzelat family reintroducing the Lineage, etc., etc. So I didn't taste it yet, unfortunately, because I don't even know if they came out with the first bottles yet. I don't know, but I would like to. I would like to do it.
There's so many random grapes you could come up with, but this was really esoteric and cool. And I just love that they actually are making a wine.
But the idea was to come with a grape variety which does not exist, but I found into the Gallet dictionary, which is the Bible of the grape varieties. And secondly, I wanted to speak about, how do you say it, a disappeared grape variety,
The extinct
like
grapes,
we do. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. How do you say it?
Extinct, nearly extinct.
Yeah, extinct. And that's the same that we are doing in the second season without spoiling, just saying. Okay.
No, we'll get to that. I hope you are loving this show with Seb and learning about the drops of God. What a great show. Please watch it if you haven't done so yet. And in the meantime, we need to thank our sponsor, Wine Access. WineAccess.com/WFMP is how you will get into their site. Their team of wine experts who I know, they are great people with great palates. They have amazing relationships with producers all over the world, many of them small and independent, and they are able to source wines that you can't get locally. The prices are amazing. So when you go on to wineaccess.com/WFMP and get into the site to let them know you found out about them through me, you are going to see so many amazing wines. And they've got this fantastic buy and hold feature. If you see a wine that you really love, maybe you got their daily email, which you should definitely sign up for, and you pick that wine out and it doesn't get to that $150 free shipping threshold, it's okay because you have a month to pick out other wines to get to that threshold. They've got very affordable wines, and saving the money on shipping with just a $150 purchase is a fantastic deal. If you're interested in joining my wine club, it's wineaccess.com/normal. You'll get 6 bottles that I hand select quarterly. It's just $150 for those 6 bottles. So of course you get free shipping on that. Go to wineaccess.com/WFMP, get into the site, check it out today. Also, if you are interested in supporting this podcast and becoming a member of this awesome community that we have, go to Patreon, patreon.com/wine for normal people. The amount of extras and interaction that you get with the community and with me is unrivaled, really. I post almost every day. There's a ton of information, thousands and thousands of posts on wine information and fun stuff. Also, if you're looking to increase your wine knowledge, Wines of France is coming up. This is a great class to learn more about the basics of French wine. Also, a focus class on Bordeaux. That is at winefornormalpeople.com/classes. Registration is just $35 per person. You buy the wines locally, and it's a 2-hour class for that. It's a really in-depth experience, and you get to do it in your pajamas. winefornormalpeople.com/classes. Now let's get back to the show. In the first season, because there's this ridiculous cellar worth millions and millions of dollars, your job in large part, and they were in vineyards, but a lot of this, I can't imagine the number of blanks. And you had to come up with, which chateau in Bordeaux am I going to put? The wines that you put in those specific blanks, are they wines that you love? Are they wines that had the level of prestige had to be different for whatever they were tasting? But how did you pick? Because there are so many, and there's so many really wonderful producers that you kind of want to support too. How did you go through that process? The big ones like Icam and the champagnes, you're going to be able to slot those in. But what about those more esoteric? Are they friends of yours? Are they people that you respect? How did you pick?
You know, people that you love, of course, or I admire or I love. Of course, I've tasted the wines we are speaking about, of course, but the first season, when it came up into our lives, the crew, well, for me, it was amazing. It was about wine. We didn't know if a second season would come out. Absolutely not. So we wanted the season to speak to neophytes. So how to open a bottle of wine, how to taste, to smell wine. And of course, we had to speak about the most known wines in the world, like Cheval Blanc, like Romanée Conti, like etc. Because, you know, we had to, how do you say it, to catch some people? I don't know.
Yeah,
to catch some
you were
people.
trying, right. And I think it's actually a great education for people to know, especially new people. They hear these names and they have zero idea why. For us, we know why Bordeaux or Burgundy is famous, but I think that when people come in, they're like, what is that? Like everything seems to be with a B, like Brunello, Barolo, Barbaresco, Bordeaux, Burgundy, Barossa. And I think that idea of like, oh, I've heard that name before, I think it is really important. And I think especially because a lot of the first season was about prestige, and especially Issei, he was all about the prestige and that giant cellar in Japan that was worth, it was in Japan or France. I can't remember. It was in Japan, right? The ridiculous cellar.
It was in Japan. It was the Alexandre Léger the cellar. Yeah, but you're right. But it was the first season, like in every kind of series or film, it was the basics. So the basics were great wines, how to taste the wine again, how to, etc. And so we put everything in it, like saying, okay, the world of wine, if you make a picture of the wine, a caricatural one, it would be that. But there is those aspects that you are talking about. But also, for example, Alexandre Léger, in one of the episodes, he's talking in front of a jury, trying to get his enologist exam or whatever. And he says, you people and your great castles, you are just in your ivory tower, not watching what's happening around, etc. And this is kind of the things I think. This is kind of my way of seeing wine as well. But well, I don't know. We've put some great wines, some not so much known, and especially in the second season. And of course, what I can tell you is that Apple TV and Klaus Zimmerman, the producer, they let me do whatever I wanted. I've chosen the wines. Nobody sent me any wine or money or whatever to be in the show. And it will go on this way, I guess.
Thank you for saying that, because I think people probably did wonder whether or not people tried to slip you wine or get in the show or find out you were doing this and try to get in. So that's a really important point also, that this is all from you and it's genuine and authentic. And the ideas that you went to some of the different countries, like that small place in Italy, how did you find that?
So this is the only place speaking about a wine which does not exist. So this Italy came from the writers, because it was a tribute to the mangas. In the mangas, there is a sequence talking about picture and a painter, and so they wanted to make a link to the manga. So this come from them.
Okay, so some of it was fictionalized, but I mean, most of it is totally accurate. In season 2, we'll talk about that. You take a totally different turn. I'm not spoiling it because all the episodes aren't out. And again, you do some of the greatest hits. You have Icam, you have Quintarelli and Jacques Celos. Did you change your approach at all? Because you've got Mexican wine in there. You got all sorts of stuff. And then we'll get to the Georgian wine, which is the big deal. But you have Greek wine, which really is not loved enough. It was really interesting to see the evolution. Season 1 to me was like, here's all the greatest hits. These are the things you'd expect. And now you've just explained why they really needed to be there. In our world, those are our celebrities. Some people that are making these wines, nobody knows who Aubert Villain is in the real world. Romani Conti. But in the second season, you went off the grid. You took some really cool chances. How did that happen?
Well, as you understood, wine is one of the 3 characters. There is Camille, there is Issei, and the wine. It's not, the Drops of God are not a documentary about wine, but we speak about wine to involve the characters into emotion and the history and investigation, etc. So for the first season, once again, tribute to the manga. In the manga, the 2 authors, Shu Akimoto and Tasagi, they put like 80% of European wine, and in those 80% of European wine, there is 80% of French wines, because they did it in the 2000s. This is what they love, and etc. So in the first season, tribute to them, we put expensive bottles, very known, etc. In the second one, we tried to put some well, I'm sorry, I'm French, so foreigners wines, but some American wines, or Mexican wines, or Greek wines, a bit more than they use, but what they used to do into the mangas, because there is like maybe 60% of French and 40 of the rest of the world, I would say. And of course, we use wines that sommelier and the geeks of wine know very well, like, I don't know, Comte Lafont or whatever. But in this season, we speak about biodynamics, we speak about ecologic issues, water issues into the vineyard, into agriculture, and etc. And for the same reason, I wanted to speak about small producers, people struggling into a territory, trying to capture the essence of a territory, and every day they are going to the vineyards, working hard in the vineyards to make an authentic, emotional, true wine, which tastes like them, like their soul, and they give it to people. And this is the essence of the winemaker job. And even Aubert de Villaine, you were talking about him, who is one of the greatest human being in the wine ever. Firstly, he's making wine, and then Romani Conti became what it is today. Iconic wine that all the people with a lot of money want to taste. But he is just a winemaker, a farmer, waking every day with the desire of making the best with his plot.
Yeah, well, you know him, right?
Yeah, that's it.
It is amazing that you were able to convey that, and the writers were okay with at the beginning. And again, this is not spoiling the plot at all, but you're clearly in there. I mean, I didn't know that it was you, but clearly there was somebody in there getting the message out about what's going on with climate change, the fact that wineries have to be more sustainable. There were some things in there that I'd never seen before with the water usage. That was really cool. I didn't even know that was going on. But all of that innovation, I hope that people, as they're watching it, of course, now that we're doing this, at least my listeners hopefully will look for this. But it is a really, really important thing to get into the consciousness of mainstream drinkers also, that it's farming, right? Like, so we're trying our best to honor, even in the winery where production is happening, to make sure that we're honoring the land and not polluting the land. I think you did a really great job of explaining it.
Yeah, this is the key. This is one of the keys we have to work on, but winemakers and we, the people, have to work on. I told you that we went to Beaucastel to understand about nature, and that by understanding nature, the writers could understand the best way to describe our job and humanity with the characters and etc. So So, okay, when we shot the first season, it was in September 21, I think, 21 or something like that. Yeah, 2021, I don't remember.
Wait, who let you in their winery in September? Like, who
That's
would
what I
let you
wanted
do
to.
that?
Exactly. So because the film industry, they had their own temporality, and they knew, of course, that September is the harvesting. But Beaucastel, they told them, but of course we will welcome you, no problem, because good contact was made with Klaus and I'm selling their wines in Paris and etc. So they trusted us to go there, and but everything would be nice, working with them. But of course, it was in September, the worst moment, and at the same moment, they were starting over the renovation and the rebuilding of Beaucastel itself. So from the ground, they just started to destroy the winery just after in October 21, let's say 21, I think, and they rebuild for the next generation a new Beaucastel with millions of euros, but not making an amazing architectural palace, but something sustainable for the next generation, handling the waste of water, capturing the rain going through the roof into a cistern, into the ground for refreshing with fluid and etc. The cellar, blah blah blah. Breath.
That's
That's it.
Beaucastel?
Exactly, and that was obvious for us because we wanted the series to be into the reality. So it was obvious after knowing that Apple accepted to make a second season. It was obvious for us to start again from Beaucastel because one of the things I wanted to speak about was biodynamics, and the writers wanted to go deeper into the characters' emotions and etc. So once again, we go back to the roots, to the vine itself and the way to preserve nature and etc. So we went back there, and Beaucastel inspired the history in a sense, in a way.
They are really amazing in terms of their leadership, especially in Chateauneuf. Aren't they the only ones that use all 13 grapes? They use every grape in their
Yeah,
blend,
the
one of
13
their
grapes,
blends.
not the only ones, but one of the last, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They honor tradition, and yet they're moving forward and trying to be
true.
sustainable and use modern technology. They're very well respected. So in the second season, you go to Georgia, and we'll just be very clear. Georgia, they have done a fantastic job of marketing the fact that they are the cradle of wine, although Armenia is definitely coming in strong with a good argument that they might be. And some of the Armenian wines are quite good. So Georgia, I would say, at least in the US, and I don't know how it is in France, it's sort of this novelty product. And a lot of the wines maybe are less tasty than maybe we would like. How did you decide on Georgia, or did the writers decide on it? What kind of Georgian wine experience did you have before? Because at least from what I've tasted, it's not all good. So, how did you pick this, and what did you learn about Georgian wine that you did not know before? Because it's been around for 8,000 years. But in terms of our familiarity with it, I would assume that you probably had limited exposure to it, right?
Right. You're perfectly right. So, firstly, it was the writers who came out with the idea of Georgia. That was not my first idea, but well, we went there and it was obvious. Once again, a bit like Beaucastel with the biodynamics and etc. Going to Georgia, the roots of wine, even if, yeah, you can maybe there is a different history, but well, it was around this area. Let's say it this way. Georgia was, yeah, it was nice.
They've got the Quervy. They've got the
Yeah, the Quevri, yeah.
which is very cool, especially for film producers. They must have been like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, the big amphoras that they put into the ground, yeah, for to age the wine, exactly, the Quevri. I didn't have a big knowledge about Georgian wines. Yeah, I know that they are promoting a lot wines, but especially I think in the US, because it came, this word orange wines is coming from America. I think it was an American journalist who used this word firstly, and it's easy to remember. So maceration wines from Georgia. I didn't know so much about them, so I didn't understand, to be honest, very well the process, how they could do it for 1, 2, 3 years maceration and getting easy tannins, I would say, okay, for the whites I'm speaking.
Yeah.
So I went in several wine shops in Paris and I bought maybe, I don't know, 30 or 40 bottles of white skin contact wines, and
Jeez.
I didn't taste anything I liked, honestly.
You guys didn't go into the reds, but those are
Yeah,
very
yeah,
difficult
and
as
the reds
well.
one are the roof are very hard. The reds one are very complicated because they are full grapes and etc. So the tannins are roof and vegetal and etc. So, but at this time I didn't taste red yet. So, and I couldn't find reds. So I tried to get wines from England and Switzerland and whatever for wine shops. And I tasted many wines and I found my grail, my own one. So it's called Marani Rispiri. Marani means domaine, estate, bodega, okay? Marani Rispiri. I was astonished by the wine. So I went to Georgia in Kaheti. I met the guy. He's working in biodynamics for now. I think it's like 9 or 10 years. He's settled. He's crazy. He's crazy, my God. But talking about you now, I've got how do you say it? Goosebumps. When my hair
Oh, goosebumps, goosebumps.
yeah,
Yes, yeah,
goosebumps. Yeah,
because you
that's it.
loved talking to him because he's
Yeah,
crazy. He's crazy in all the right wine ways. Yeah.
yeah. Just speaking about the wine, I've got goosebumps because this one I didn't understand the way he did it. There is so much energy in the wine, vibrating. And so I went there. He showed me because if I start to speak about his wine, I'm going to be too long. So he showed me how he does it into the Kvevri. And mostly I understood something is that, to make a good skin contact wine, you have to give it time. So that means for the red, for example, out of Saperavi, which is the grape variety, which is the most known there, it's possible to make a good wine, but you have to live for 3 years into Kvevri
Three
and different.
years.
Yeah, yeah.
How does there no bacterial spoilage? I'm sorry, I don't
So
want to get
he's
too technical, but how do they stop that? Did they use SO2 or no? As sulfur?
so no, they don't use sulfur at all. So some of them now, because they are making an industrial for the skin contact wine, but they are not true ones. But well, there is another way, which is a natural way. They put wax into the Kvevri for 1 year. They leave into the Kvevri, then they change it. They put it for another year and another Kvevri, and etc. for 3 years. But this, he told me that it does not work that good because the liquid is dissolving the wax after a while.
Right,
And
right.
he even told me that there is a little taste maybe led by the wax. So what he does is he's using resistance, metal wire, and he heats for 24 hours the Xevri, and all the bacteria and the spores and etc. are just destroyed.
Does he have to do it regularly?
Just before putting the wine into the Xevri. Yeah, that's it.
That's really interesting. And I think that's
Okay.
probably unique to him, right?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe some other guys are using this process, but he does, and that works. I can tell you.
I'll get the name and I'll also put a link to his winery in the notes in case we can get it here. And from season 1 to season 2, now you have these people who know stuff about wine. Was it a lot easier in season 2 to deal with the writers and the actors because you knew them, but also because the training was a little bit less, or was it just as hard?
Speaking about the writers, the team has changed between the first and second, so we had to share some again, and that was cool. But my involvement was clarified from the beginning. Okay, so I was part of the team of the writers, even if I was just there to pour wine and to give them food during they were writing. They made me believe I was a part of the team. No, that's not true. They
No,
are
definitely
so
not.
kind. I love them so much. But for the actors, yeah, obviously it was much easier. They knew their part. They knew what they had to do. And even when we met oftenly to go to restaurants and etc., now they drink wine easily. They know many regions. And something I like very much is that Tomo and Fleur as well, they are now flagships for the wine industry. And we can see it more with the second season. How do you say it in English? A confrérie, syndicate, etc.
Brotherhood. Yeah, they're right.
Yeah,
They're a group.
brotherhood of
Yeah,
wine, etc. Are calling. I'm sorry, they are calling us for interviews to be a godfather or godmother of special events. They are interviewed as a wine specialist, and this is so great because they understand wine, but more they are talking about our world and explaining to people. That's great.
We need those spokespeople. We need
Yeah,
Hollywood to
great.
help us. Taylor Swift just sold out all of Sancerre, which was helpful. But we need more
Right,
people.
right.
Yeah. And you know what?
But that was crazy.
Thank God that she's drinking wine because there's so many people that aren't. So however much I liked her before, I love her even more now because entertainment is really important. That's what I would sort of want to close with. When you think about your involvement with Drops of God, you were never in entertainment before, right? You weren't involved before. But when you think about the way that the entertainment world views wine, and what they learned, and then also what you learned. What came out of this? Because I think it would certainly help us, like we just said with Taylor Swift, if other people in the entertainment industry understood Drops of God is so great because it incorporates an amazing story. And to your point, you, I think, really are credited with making wine a true character. Do you think that the entertainment industry respects wine? Do they understand it at all?
You mean the film industry, right?
Yeah, it seems like it would be nice if we got a little bit more recognition after something like this, which
Yeah.
has been successful.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to express it very good in your language, but like any kind of industry, if they see a hole, they all go into the hole. I don't know if you say it in English, but you see the picture. So I hope that will work, but a few years ago it was I don't know, the biopics or whatever, and so they made movies with fingers and etc. So maybe they would see that the wine agriculture people have interest for it and that it's bankable. If it's bankable, so they will go for it, I guess. And if they go for it and earn money with it, that's great. But I hope that they will give the good word, telling to people that but in France we've got a special law which is called Loi Evin from the senator who created this law. You cannot speak about wine or alcohol on TV, on radio, on etc. This is
This is
considered
new,
as
right?
promotion. This is from '93, I think, or '95, something like that, 30 years ago. It's
And I wonder
considered
why
as
people aren't drinking wine anymore.
yeah, that's it. Well, this is a real subject because alcohol, of course, is a drug. You can be addicted to alcohol.
Of
That's
course.
truth. But you have to separate wine from alcohol. Wine, of course, is alcohol, but it's also history, agriculture, nature, etc., etc., blah, blah, blah. And so that's crazy that we in France cannot speak about one of the things which make us the most proud. That's crazy.
Well, and
So
it's like the spiritual home. Kids who are like, in their 20s, not drinking wine. It's disappointing. It's sad that I feel like they haven't had the experience that you had when you were younger. I would hate to see that drop off out of French culture, that France seems to be on a decline
yeah, that's right.
domestically, which is crazy
That's
because if
right.
you're not drinking your own wine, who
Yeah, but we are not sharing meals as we used to do when I was a kid. We were around the table sharing a meal, and not only for the chicken Sunday, as we used to say, but every night after work, my dad, we came home and he used to drink some wine at table, and we were eating meat and a starter and etc. and speaking around the table. Now I've got two daughters, 20 and 16. We try to make it twice or 3 times a week. I would like to do it always, but they just don't. It bothers them, and I understand that. So they go to the fridge, pick up something, and eat in their rooms. Okay, this is a caricature, okay, but it
we
does
all
happen sometimes.
I have
So I
children
mean,
of a little bit younger age, and it's the exact same thing. We try, but life has sped up too much. But this is why wine is on the decline. It's because people are more lonely than ever before. They're not going and sharing bottles of wine. They're not having people over.
Why would they share a bottle of wine when you can take your phone and call and have in 10 minutes Uber Eats delivering you whatever you want to eat? But I understand, honestly, there is no nostalgia or whatever, you have to do with your own time. That's the thing. But talking about Drops of God, yes, I hope that we are doing some of the job teaching this young generation and the 50s and 60s as well to drink wine again, because there is cheap wines about $10, which are very tasty and good. Amazing wines also, like thousands of dollars, of course. But most of all, it's coming from the earth. It's natural. It's great. It's history. It's mystical. It's breath. You have to look at the season 2. You will see what I mean.
I agree. So my last question to you is, what did you learn from this experience of you trying to convey something so very important to us as wine people to a larger audience, that we want our passion to be contagious? We want them to understand it. We want them to love it as much as we do. We want all of that. And so I am sure that it wasn't without sometimes pressure on yourself saying, like, this matters. This is really, really important. What I'm doing is this is an important job. What did you learn about yourself or wine in the process?
Okay, so I have to be honest, the thing I learned about myself, but that's maybe the most important, because I think in life you have to struggle against your own demons and find your own path. And that's difficult. For the first time, maybe for 4 or 5 years since I started to work for Drops of God. I don't feel like I am an imposter. Does it exist in English, imposter?
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
okay.
course. Yes.
Honestly, that's crazy. Yeah? I'm 53 in a few months. I've done many things, you know. This is not pretentious, but you know, I've done many things into my wine world. You know, a lot of jobs. Yeah, I failed, I succeed in some, etc. But I was still not sure about what I was representing or telling to people. And now after the drops, it gives me a stage. So and what we are giving to people, transmitting to people through the drops of God is understandable. People like it, and then I feel a bit better in my shoes. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. Is there going to be a season 3?
I don't know. I hope. Yeah,
I hope so too.
let's light a candle and ask Apple TV to make a third one. I would like to, and the crew would like to.
Yeah. Well, give us one more plug for your restaurant in Paris so that people can come visit you. Again, I'll add the link.
La petite régalade. Régalade means to enjoy yourself very much. Like drinking à la régalade means drinking with a large sip of wine. Okay, la régalade. La petite
Where is it?
régalade. It's in Place Vendôme,
Okay. Yep.
Square, where there is all the jewelry, etc., the rich centrum of Paris.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we want people to come visit you. Thank you so much for your time, Seb. I'm so glad that they found you, and I'm so glad that they hired you because you're exactly the right person for conveying to people who might just pick the show up and don't know a lot about wine how to do this. So, like, I think you've done just an amazing job and such a service to the industry. And I hope that I get to meet you in your restaurant someday because you are lovely. So, thank you so much for being on the show.
Anytime. I'm expecting you in La Petite Régalade, and merci beaucoup, as we say in France.
You will see me. Thank you so much. And with that, this has been another episode of Wine for Normal People. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time.